I came across a line in the book I'm reading, which is Bewilderment by Richard Powers. The line is something like, civilization is an accumulation of mistakes. I want to talk about this because it fits into my worldview of how I see progress happening, what I think liberty is, epistemology, knowledge. All these things are related, and it's a very important piece of the puzzle, if you will, because we live in a time when people are a little bit distressed for various reasons. And actually, the Richard Powers novel is a very, I would say, distressing piece of literature. It's a good novel. I think Powers goes a little bit too far on the, call it the whining side, but I'm not going to discuss the novel now. I'm going to do a formal review once I'm done with the novel. I want to talk about three major pillars of my worldview, and I'm also going to relate that to Orange Capital Partners, which is obviously part of this podcast series. But so the three major pillars are knowledge, liberty, and error correction. Okay. The third one might sound a little bit abstract, so let me talk about this first. Error correction just really means making mistakes and fixing them. Knowledge is the thing that perpetuates itself through life, or if you want, even the multiverse, but let's not go there now. And then liberty is the absence of oppression. Okay, those are the three things I want to talk about and why I think they're so crucial for wealth creation, for what we do at Orange Capital Partners, and in general, I think for anybody who wants wealth to proliferate in her life or in society, these three pillars are indispensable. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's April 9th, 2023. This is Krim Delko. Since the last update, we're down 20%. The market's up 0.5%. For the year, we are up 49.8%. The market's up 8%. We're outperforming by 41.8%. So before I go into the conversation, just a real quick update on the markets. We lost on Tesla because they published their quarterly production and delivery numbers, and the delivery numbers came in a little bit soft based on the strong production numbers, which leads people to fear an inventory buildup and a demand pocket. Now, this is distressing for various reasons. One is we've been building inventory in the past, so we're continuing to build inventory. We also have some softness in Europe. China is strong, and the US is okay. It's not particularly strong, but also now Europe's weak, and the S and the X are weak in the US, which is concerning because of margins. So those are, in general, I think the main vectors of worry here. As far as we're concerned, I think we agree with it. I think the market is pricing Tesla as a growth story with risk, and given the macro risk, there is no surprise of a demand pocket. But let's put things in perspective. We're growing 35% year over year. We're roughly in line with guidance, and we're growing 35% year over year in a sort of double-digit decline global car market. And that in itself is obviously a big feat. I think that Tesla has the potential to grow 50% annual for the next couple of years because they have the demand. The current not so fast growth is driven by the macro, and I think we can't defy gravity. So macro is part of the picture, and we're going to have to live with it. I think that's why Tesla is priced the way it's priced. That's why Tesla is a little bit weaker in a sense that it could be maybe $100 more per share, but it's not, and that's fine. I think we need to get through the macro issues that we're dealing with right now, and we also need to see some more confidence in the demand. So let's say we want to see a quarter or two of inventory draws. We want to continue to grow production. That's a good sign. But we need a little bit more meat around the bone when it comes to demand growing at the fast clip at which Tesla wants to grow. So this is really, in general, I think, what's holding back the stock right now, and that's what happened in the last week. Now let's talk about today's subject. It is about liberty, knowledge, and error correction. Those three vectors are intertwined. We've said on many occasions that we consider wealth creation and liberty the same side, different sides of the same coin. We added knowledge to that because knowledge is really what drives wealth creation. Wealth, as defined by David Deutsch, is a set of potential transformations. They are driven by knowledge. Knowledge is what proliferates throughout the universe, or multiverse if you want. So that's what knowledge is. Now, why is that so important? Well, knowledge is an accumulation of mistakes. That's another way to look at it. It is the thing that helps us solve problems. It is the thing that creates new problems, better problems, and then hopefully we can solve them and keep going. This is how we understand epistemology today at Orange Capital Partners. It's rooted in Popper, and it's popularized today by David Deutsch. That's roughly the way we see it. It's a worldview that is optimistic in a sense that it gives us hope that we can solve problems, and it gives us hope that we can find solvable problems. So one thing is, of course, having the knowledge to solve a problem. The other thing is to even go and find the good problems that are solvable. Every problem that is good is solvable. Every good solvable problem is a good problem. And every problem that is not solvable is a bad problem. For example, climate change is a bad problem. It's not solvable because it's not clear what it is. And this is just one example. I'm in Europe right now. I've been a bit soft on my trip commentary because unfortunately I've fallen ill for a few days with some sort of bacterial infection or something like that. I'm getting over it now, so I'm back and I'm okay. I can exercise and I can do the podcast. And by the way, this is just a tangent. It's interesting how physical health is absolutely paramount when it comes to something like mental work, doing a podcast, all those sort of things. But that's just a tangent. Let's get back to, so the way we see knowledge, it is the creation of solutions for problems that emerge from a try and error process, which we sometimes we call it the scientific method. Unfortunately, that word has kind of lost its traction a little bit because it's become very political, particularly during times of COVID, but even before. And therefore, we don't want to get entangled now with definitions. We're not Wittgensteinians here. All we're saying is that the thing which helps us solve problems is what we call knowledge. In particular, the thing that proliferates itself, copies itself throughout the multiverse, or if we don't want to think about the multiverse, at least it copies itself. It gets replicated in this universe. People start using that kind of whatever it is, that knowledge that helps solve problems. So if we have, for example, if we find that eating less meat and more green vegetables helps with diabetes, then people automatically start copying that. Or if we find a way to build processors that are powerful and efficient, then other companies, other countries copy that. So we see that in the economy all the time. We see that in business. Things get copied all the time. That's what knowledge is. And just since we're in a hedge fund, the way we think about knowledge when it comes to wealth creation is, of course, it's the speed of innovation or the speed of error correction that helps a company keep a competitive advantage. And error correction is important for companies, it's important for societies, because it's related to the quote, that civilization is an accumulation of errors. Because when you accumulate errors, when you, through try and error, find better solutions to problems, that's when you increase your wealth, because that's how you increase the potential transformations. Because the faster you error correct, the faster you innovate, the faster you have better solutions for problems, the faster you create better problems, and so on and so forth. Now, let me talk about the third pillar here, which is liberty. Why is liberty so important? Liberty is the absence of oppression. Let's just leave it at that. I don't want to get boggled down in Wittgensteinian definitions. Liberty is the thing when you can do things without oppression, when you can do things without coercion. The definition of a good state is when things work with as little as possible coercion. We're not saying that liberty is the absence of coercion per se. There are things that liberty requires to be safeguarded, and that's a very difficult sort of tight roadblock to walk, right? We agree with that, and that's for another podcast series. But what we just want to say here is that in general, liberty is the absence of coercion and oppression, and it's absolutely crucial, because if you have liberty, then you have the ability to harness 7+ billions of brains, serendipity, randomness, all of those things that come out with voluntary interaction of ideas. So liberty and knowledge and wealth creation are all the same thing. They're all related, and at some point they are actually the same thing. And the reason we're talking about this now, I didn't want to talk about Richard Powers' novel, but let me just bring in one tangent here, which is this idea of planet anxiety, which, I'm in Europe right now. I was a little bit absent because I was sick, but I'm back now. And one of the things that I've noticed here is, particularly in the German-speaking world, is this planet anxiety and this obsession with the environment. And of course, coming from the outside, looking at these things, I mean, you can't help but almost smirk at this hypocrisy, particularly by the Green Party in Germany, that has put the country in a terrible position of turning down the nuclear power plants, which we actually agree with. We are not pro-nuclear for the reasons that we discussed many times in this podcast. Nuclear is not the kind of technology that allows for error correction and rapid innovation, and therefore it's a bad technology and a bad problem and not worth solving. However, what we absolutely disagree with the Green Party and many other European wokists is that we have a doctrine of planet anxiety without a solution, that we leave the people hanging, it's very anti-human not to have electricity at a decent price just because you're self-righteous enough to be against whatever nuclear power and all that stuff. You can be against that, that's fine, but then invest, do what Tesla's doing. Build a supply chain, an engineering practice, know-how, knowledge, invest in technologies that can replace that. Solar and wind can do it, but we need batteries, we need transmission, we need heat pumps, we need investments, we need knowledge, we need technological knowledge, we need business knowledge, we need moral knowledge, ethical knowledge. We need a lot of knowledge to make that happen. And that's what these politicians haven't done. So that's why it's hypocrisy. I just came back from Davos. The Davos lake is empty. There's no water in there. And that's pretty bad. And why is there no water in there? Because they needed all the water for electricity. It's terrible. It's hypocrisy at large scale. It's absurd. It's disgusting. Because they were dependent on Russian gas, and now they don't have Russian gas, and now they're emptying our lakes because these Fruit Loops, they didn't want nuclear power, they didn't want, oil, big oil, and all that's all bad. Yeah, and now you're sitting here and you pumped my lake, the lake that I like to go and see when I come to Davos. It's terrible. I'm sorry for ranting, but it's just a perfect example of how this, and this is one of the critiques I have about Richard Powers' novel, not a critique about the novel itself, but about the character in there, the self-righteous planet anxiety movement in the Northwest United States in particular, but everywhere else in the United States and here, these self-righteous people that bring us in a position where we have to make anti-human choices. You know, when it comes to the trolley problem, which is planet or us, I think we're the first. It's about us and then everything else. This is what humanism is. This is what humanity is. It's first humans. Any solution that's not human is not a good solution. So to summarize, I think what's important about liberty, error correction, and knowledge is to understand that these ideas themselves have developed throughout millennia the same way everything else develops. It's knowledge, it's technology. We weren't created. If you bombard the planet with photons, you don't just get liberty. That's a concept that we, that had to be hard fought over thousands of years, at least in our more modern history. Who knows how it was maybe 10, 20,000 years ago, but at least for now we know that the Greeks and then the Romans and the Renaissance and all that, these things had to be developed. And the best way to go forward for humanity is to proliferate liberty, knowledge, and error correction, to continue on that path. That's the best way forward. It's the most human way forward. And most importantly, it's one that opens up all these other potential transformations. In other words, it creates a lot of wealth. And this is not just about creating wealth for those who think, oh, he just wants to make money and all that. Look, I don't really care. I don't need to justify myself. My point here is, and this is the summary, that in order to continue on a path of improving outcomes in the future, okay, to improve the potential for outcomes in the future, we have a path that we started, like I said, thousands of years ago. It's a known path. It's a path of success. It's helped us create wealth, which is, again, it's helped us increase the potential for transformations of our society. We can do a lot more that we could do 2,000 years ago. As a society, we can create better defense against attacks, both from humans and from viruses. We can create better ways to live. We have a lot more innovations in architecture. We can create a lot better ethical and moral knowledge. We have found ways to help, lift the poor from poverty. So we found very good, we found knowledge to solve very, very difficult problems. And by the way, there is an analytical solution to the question, well, why should we even do that? And the answer is because, and this is John Rawls, like if a society can improve the situation of its poorest by not making everybody else worse off, in fact, making everybody else even better off, which is what knowledge creation, error correction, and liberty have done. If a society has that potential, then that society is not just. This is John Rawls. This is John Rawls at his best. And I don't care how people have interpreted him and where it's going, and maybe he is the father of wokeism and all that. I don't care. But as an analytical, theoretical person, he, in my view, has taken Kant's ideas of the categorical imperative to the next level and find an analytical formulation of why a society must continue on the path of error correction, liberty, and knowledge creation. It's because a society that doesn't do that is not just. And now, of course, you can ask me what does just mean and all that. As I said, we're not Wittgensteinians here. Justice is the thing that maximizes this potential, where we can make everybody else better off without making anybody else worse off. That's what knowledge creation, liberty, and error correction. So that's why we must continue on this path. And of course, the question is how to make sure that liberty can be safeguarded. Liberty itself, it's a fragile concept. It's not necessarily something that, like I said, it doesn't fall from the sky. And we have to find ways to safeguard liberty in better ways. We're okay. We have it in many places in the world, and it's under attack sometimes, and sometimes we can fence off that attack and all of that. But there's always danger, I've spoken many times on this podcast about the dangers within, Dwight Eisenhower's farewell speech, the dangers within our system, not just the political system, but the academic system too, the dangers within the family. There's a lot of dangers where our concept of liberty is being attacked. And we better think about how to protect it. Thank you.